I want to introduce Marc Goldberg. So Marc and I have known each other how long now? It's been almost about, I'd say,
For
since two.
a long time, a long time.
Right. Yeah, easily like 6 or 7 years, maybe longer. And Marc has very generously agreed to join me today to talk a little bit about the Chief Revenue Officer role. He is a Chief Revenue Officer. I'll certainly provide the opportunity for Marc to introduce himself, but just want to thank you and welcome you to have this conversation. It's just kind of a casual discussion about the role and your experience with it. So go ahead, how you doing? And tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So my background, I've done a lot of different things, different roles, from CEO, head of biz dev to, when I was a young lad, junior assistant media planner. But no, now I'm at Method Media Intelligence. We are a measurement company in the ad verification space, helping advertisers stay away from what they want to stay away from, as well as, remove a lot of that waste. I'm a Chief Revenue Officer, which we can talk about today, which means a whole lot. And depending on what type of company you're in, the role has changed. However, you get to define it. And that's, I think, the conversation today we get to have.
Thanks. I think so. I'd be curious to know, I guess, first of all, is how do you perceive the role as Chief Revenue Officer, and how does that match against how you're currently fulfilling on it today at the company you're at?
Yeah, CROs generally are a level higher than just a salesperson or a sales manager. And it can be at a publisher, different types of places. But to me, traditionally, a CRO kind of sees all revenue and all aspects of all revenue. However, when you're in a startup like where we are, I'm a sales guy. Until we have all the lines of revenue understood in the teams to do it, I am just really hands-on doing what I need to be doing to get done. And I think that's the difference. Is you're going to see a big company, little company, you're going to see sectors of different roles and responsibilities within those roles. So for me, I look at this role as an opportunity to kind of really shape the future of MMI. New company start.
How many people are in MMR? What's the size of the company?
We're a little. I think we're now a little over 10.
Okay, I got it. So it's a small company, and as you said, because it's a small company, which I understand, and this is actually something I want to get into, is you obviously are going to focus more on driving actual revenues than managing a revenue team, because you need more complexity before that other aspects of the role can be activated. But my question, I guess, is, given that is a reality, would you say that you and your boss are currently aligned on the fact that your role is going to evolve and change as the company gets bigger? Or is it something that you think, but your boss might not think? Like, how is the alignment on the conversation in your company around this?
It's a great question. I mean, I think I jumped into this where everyone understood we all have to be selling at any given moment. Like, use your contacts, use your relationships. Let's talk to people who may find value in what we're doing. And so I think it all starts with, that, to your point, knowing where you stand.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and here's a good question. I put it this way: if you were to say to your boss, "Hey, I've been curious about it. Write up for me succinctly in an email. I'm just curious, what's my job, and what's my job today, and what's my job, a year from now, and what's my job 2 years from now?" What do you think he would say?
I think we're on the same page. And so again, I joined with the understanding that, we're all going to do this together. And then as we grow, our roles will become bigger and more important. I use the analogy or the story of, the CEO of Warren.com is probably Warren. It's easy to be a CEO, CFO, CRO in any small company that doesn't really have the structure to be, or the revenue to be a big company. But as soon as you become a big company, then those roles start to matter. I never liked managing people. I thought roles were irrelevant. However, as you start to want to shape the story and the direction of a company, that's kind of where I sit now. And then the role's fine. It means exactly what it means. It's the revenue portion of our business, and how we get there is really up to me. And I would say the CEO has a vision, and the CEO has an idea. I help him execute on that vision, and I give my shared vision and my knowledge of what drives revenue to make that all happen and be a bigger company.
Got it. So then some of the stuff that I see has to be worked out in a situation like yours is assuming that you're on the same page as me, and that you agree that, you're going to have to ultimately manage people, and you're going to have to manage multiple departments, which is all the revenue facing. We can get into that in a minute, what that means. That you are going to have to become more of a step up hierarchically manage people, et cetera, et cetera. Do you see yourself at some point, or do you have a plan? Is it clear at this point, and how clear, if so, when you would transfer from selling into managing and leading? And the second part of the question is, would you then at that point put down the bag and put down the quota and just focus on those things? Or do you think you'll always be in a sales role as well?
That is a very good question. And I have to answer it honestly in that I don't think I could ever put the bag down completely. However, I would like to. I think, ultimately you want to, empower a team to do what they need to do. And you have to be, as a business leader, effective in doing that. You can't be busy calling people who you want to do deals with, and they need to do that for you. So it's a collaborative with your team. It really comes down to, the scale of your business. And so I kind of alluded to it earlier that, everyone right now is selling.
Sure.
But soon things come off their plate, go onto mine. As soon as my plate becomes too big, I need to start hiring more folks to get that done. And that's kind of the path in the next 6 to 8 months where we see happening is it's now starting, the revenue is now coming in the building. The revenue and the deals need to get done. So now we need to free people up to do client services and data analyst. That's the next step, like getting the work in the door, getting people to do it. Now we continue to sell. I've been shaping a lot of the message to get people to come in the door. And I think that's going to be a lot more of the conversation. And we've had these things called conferences that used to happen in real time and real people. We just have to shift. And there's a lot of press that can be done. There's a lot of things that can be done that I still feel falls under that umbrella. Right, press and the noise and the marketplace positioning, that's on me.
I got it. So you mentioned in your answer that you'd like to stop selling, but you probably won't. Is that because you think the company mandate will always require you to keep a bag in your hand, or is that more like what's driving that?
I like it. I like talking to people. I like it. I mean,
I get that.
Yeah, the mandate would probably be, hey, you got to manage these guys and you got to hire more of them because we're doing so well. Stop trying to call someone. Stop trying to email someone. And
I see. So you're battling your own desire to stop selling is really the barrier, but you do recognize, I hear you saying, I don't want to put words in your mouth, that most effectively you'd be doing less of it to manage the team as it gets bigger.
Correct.
I got it. Okay, cool. So then given that, that's really great. So then given that, like, do you now, given the fact that your company is at this stage and small enough, I would imagine then you, with the title Chief Revenue Officer, you have control or say in how the company would be shaped and how the hierarchy would look and the reporting would look. So if you look ahead, let's say the company gets to a complexity level of, let's say 25 million in sales, right, a year, and you realize that now you need to kind of build a little bit more complexity. If you could, what do you envision as like the optimal sort of org chart for the Chief Revenue Officer organization? Like, how do you see it looking underneath you? How would you design it if you could, without any barrier, any argument? Just you can make it whatever you want.
So I think you need to get regional folks. So you start to have sales folks under you, whether they're the head of the region or they're individual contributors. I think you need to have some biz dev or partnership folks. Channel partnerships have become a very interesting angle and source of revenue for a lot of different companies. You need someone to help structure those. I mean, sure, I can do it and I'm doing it, but in the future, you want to have some form of a senior biz dev type of person. Mm-hmm. From the marketing PR, they need to be tied in under sales, client services, sales. You could make an argument that they're a subset of sales and they also report to the COO. I'm fine with that. As long as they're written into the same page and same structure and the goals, that ultimately is the responsibility of the CEO and the CEO to help kind of frame the story for the team. Again, a CRO, as you get bigger, have more responsibilities and will have too big of an org chart. So breaking it up is fine. However, again, getting those types of disciplines under or at least next to will make a successful CRO.
Got it. So it sounds to me, based on the way you just described that you feel, and again, just based on the way you describe that a Chief Revenue Officer is really primarily a sales focused role. Would you say that's how you see it?
No, well, I guess that's where I was going. The channel partnerships and the biz dev. It's not just a single source of revenue. Like the store, the product you have today is not just your revenue,
Sure.
because you can maybe do other things with that, and that's where the strategic thinking comes on. For sales, you need to give them, here's what we sell, here's how we sell it, and then go do it. This businesses aren't just on a piece of paper or a little box. You have to think a little outside the box. And I don't believe I just said that, but I did. You have to think a little outside the box and try to figure out other revenue streams. And that's, again, that revenue stream comes down to, what type of company you are in. For a publisher, it's not just all about the ad supported. There could be a subscription line. There could be e-commerce. In an ad tech, it's a little different. But you start to have a responsibility, not just with that discipline of advertising sales. You can get other parts. And so I'm a little different than that org chart for a publisher, and that publisher has a different org chart than another person. So that's where I think we all kind of, there's a little bit of fungibility, like it all doesn't completely make sense. But you can cut this out now.
It's okay. It's all good. I'm asking this question for a reason. It's because you probably have looked at a lot of the stuff I've been writing and some of the things I'm trying to get out there in the marketplace. And I do have a pretty clear point of view on this. And it is my point of view that a CRO, whether it be even an early stage CRO like yourself or a later stage one, ultimately oversees what I call the revenue operations or the revenue team, which consists of sales, marketing, and customer success. Those are the three most customer-facing parts of the company. And the CRO's responsibility is to align those three organizations to create a seamless, cohesive organization, right? Sales being one of them, marketing being another, or customer success being another. And the way you described it, you had, at least I recall your description was that the sales and marketing report into sales. Whereas the other way I would look at it is that there's a head of sales, there's a head of marketing, and there's a head of customer success. And each one of those runs their own kind of piece of the revenue organization, and they all roll up into the chief revenue officer, who helps them align themselves around cross-pollination, communication, insights, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm just curious how that particular vision fits well with yours, if you agree or you disagree with that.
Yeah, take two. I mean, in other words, throw the other stuff out if you want. But I would say, yes, the way I see an org chart, anything that can help me be more successful and the company be more successful in my job, you should always try to consider rolling up into that department. So let's just throw away the tech and the product. I have input on
Sure, those are certainly distinct organizations. I agree. However, I do think product should loop into customer success, because the customer's response to the product is optimally should drive product innovation.
There's a feedback loop, right? And there's a feedback loop, and that loop is I'm going to go out and come back every 15 minutes with another request. That doesn't scale. If I come back and we start pressure testing those across other clients, and we come back with a nice succinct requests for the tech team, that's when we can have a sit down big boy conversation. From a head of marketing to a head of customer success to a head of other groups of sales and biz dev, I think that's kind of the org. And that org, I say customer success because you also want the customer success to also be aware of what the product does and doesn't do. And they can also be very aligned there. And that's the one area I would say in different organizations. And I can say when I was a publisher, we had some groups not report to sales and revenue because we want to keep that user. We would make sure that the user and user experiences wasn't just thrown in another add-on, because when you start putting all of revenue and customer service in that story, and if you're a publisher, sometimes you forget about your users and no one's fighting for the users. And therefore you're sticking 17 ads on the page to hit that quota. There is a little disconnect sometimes in some organizations.
Okay. Got it. Yeah. So kind of switching gears a bit, if you were a CEO of a company and you were hiring a chief revenue officer, it's kind of a fun topic, and you interviewed a bunch of people whom were all of the same level of experience and had same level of depth of industry time in market, right? Maybe all 15 years or so. Would you tend to lean towards a candidate who comes from sales to be a CRO, or a candidate that comes from marketing to be a CRO, and why?
That's a great question. Obviously, I mean, some of the moving parts are what kind of business this is and what size it is. However,
So good. So let's say, like, it's a good point. Let's say it's a
yeah,
SaaS-based company, a tech
yeah.
company that sells a software product. Let's say an ad tech product. Okay, serving the agencies and brands like the ones you and I are familiar with.
Um, I I tend to think the salesperson. I think the marketing person tells a story and can tell a story and is more strategic generally than a salesperson. That's me saying it about me. However, I just do think a salesperson in a SaaS cycle understands the moving parts, all the decision makers, knows how to navigate. That's a very long process. And this doesn't just get solved with a couple of nice ads and nice story. You have to actually put it all together and continue to push through. So I would think a salesperson is more of the DNA in that scenario. I happen to like, an ex-agency person coming over, or a marketer coming over into a different position because they've seen certain things on their side of the house that when they get to a sales organization, they can add significant value. I'm a big fan of anyone who's on the agency side today because they've been exposed to every different good or bad salesperson in the world. They've seen how it gets done. They've seen what customers and clients want. And so when you bring someone on the other side, that's also a scenario which I think actually could be playing out in the future as you have these more strategic folks. So I kind of said two things there. I think it's the salesperson, but I also think you have a certain scenario in which that marketer and that agency person can add a significant amount of value.
Got it. Okay. And I guess the final question I have for you would be, if you're talking to an aspiring chief revenue officer today, someone who definitely wants that to be their next job, what would be some of the things that you would tell that person to look out for or to think about as they approach being a chief revenue officer before they make the decision to interview for one or before they take the role?
Yeah, I think it's understanding the business they're walking into, just the business drivers today. Understanding what the today looks like, because that could just be one story. You're going into an agency and selling what you have. But if you start to really do a deep dive and understand all the moving parts, what are the additional benefits you can go out with and have these new revenue streams? As you're looking at the site, could it be, again, for the publisher, an e-commerce play? Could it be a third-party relationship? Could it be channel partnerships? There are many things that as you're evaluating, you need to start thinking about how are you going to do the playbook? What are you going to do as you walk through this business in your first 30, 60, 90? But let's not stop there. Let's think about in terms of timing, nothing gets done anymore that quick, right? And so as it starts to evolve, where do you see it going? And as you're thinking about any role, where do you see this ending? Does it have a good ending? Everyone thinks they're going to be acquired by someone. Is it a feature? Or is it a business? You have to start thinking a little bit about, if you're in a small company, what's that ending? If you're in a big company, how much more can you extract from a big company's revenue stream? Like the people before you were really good at their job. They got you to a very big business. So what are you going to add value as?
Got it. And we'll ask you one more question. And this one is, what qualities and competencies do you think make successful CROs?
The qualities, I think, I'm a big believer of getting quality people who have good reputations. At the end of the day, reputation is everything. Guard it with your life, and you don't want to bring someone in who sold a couple deals and the previous company they're working with is screwed. They just didn't do anything. So I think that's really about the quality of the person and the quality of their I'm drawing a blank of the word I want to use. The quality of their not network, but their respect, like people who know them.
Okay.
I think at the end of the day, revenue officers need to be able to be a switchblade, like a Swiss Army knife.
Got it. Yeah.
Let's do this question over again because I'm gonna get there, but I just sort of struggled. So
sure. So no
the question is, what qualities? I think reputation is very important. As you want to hire someone who has a good reputation in the marketplace. You don't want someone who's doing $16 different things to someone to get a deal and then screwing someone. You don't want that as a new business bringing you forward. And I think, you want someone who can be a Swiss Army knife. You want someone to bring in that can hire very strong people in different disciplines that they know enough of, but they want an expert. The chief revenue officer does not need to be the expert. They need to make sure that they understand how to manage and run those experts.
Got it.
And I think ultimately, that's why you bring in that head of marketing. That's why you bring in that, down the line.
Got it. Okay, great. Well, thanks.